So today we have Azia Abbasi with us, and we are going to be discussing sex education at school. Azia, welcome and thank you for joining us here.
Hi, Zara. Thank you for having me today. So it's Zahra, isn't it? I heard one of your podcasts. We don't say it properly. Yeah, sorry. And mine is Azia, by the way. Right. Okay. So I'm having this issue at school where, say, I've got four boys. Older two are adults now, but I've got my third one who is in secondary school now. And for the last couple of years, there's been a debate going on about whether I allow my child to participate in sex education in school. So I think in this country they start in year five, possibly they start, or year four they start giving them sex education. And I would withdraw consent at the beginning to say no, my child is too young at the moment. I don't want him to participate. Now, up until I think last year or the year before, that was okay for me to write an email and say no, I don't want my child in there. From when the laws have changed recently, we can no longer, as parents, withdraw our child from sex education. It's considered part of biology and science that children need to learn the basic anatomy and the basic science behind it, which is fine. Obviously, they need to learn different body parts. They need to learn what the body parts are for and the basic science behind conception and sexual activity. My issue is actual showing children sex. So I believe that the schools don't communicate very well with the parents. So I had no idea when my son was going to secondary school what sex education in his secondary school looks like. So I would really appreciate more information on that, perhaps like an information session, knowing that, say, 50% of the parents are Asian or Muslim or Hindu or Sikh or whatever, and that it is a difficult topic for us to accept. Show us perhaps what you're going to show our kids, so we know. If it's just basic diagrams and things, that's perfectly fine. If you're going to show two people having sex on screen, no, that's not fine for me. So then my son came home recently and he said, for English class, so it's not science, it's English, he's studying William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. And he, being a Muslim family, we don't tend to discuss sex openly. He's never come out and said sex to me, but he implied that there were some sexualized scenes in his English lesson watching the movie. So I went to look at it, and he said something about kids protesting at having to watch this, Juliet not being dressed very well. So I went to view it the other night and I took some videos of it, and it is proper sex. There is, I think, the rating on the movie, so it's the 1996 Romeo and Juliet movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. The rating is 12, but the parental guidance says it's more aimed at 14 to 15-year-olds because high levels of violence and high levels of sexual content. So when I viewed it, I was appalled. I just thought, my 12-year-old child, who is still not allowed to even watch a kissing scene, and we forward anything that's inappropriate like that, he is having to sit through proper sexualized scenes, passionate kissing, having sex on screen by teenagers during an English lesson, and how that is helping him to learn William Shakespeare and Romeo and Juliet. I've studied Romeo and Juliet for GCSE. It was part of our GCSE syllabus. I have an A in English literature and English language. I didn't have to watch people having sex on screen to learn about that. I can imagine that a class full of 11 and 12-year-olds, so they're not even all 12, they're 11 and 12-year-olds having to sit through a lesson where there are heated scenes of sex on screen is more likely to distract them, make them all want to go and practice what they've just seen, putting up the rate of teenage pregnancies and putting up the rate of underage sex up, rather than teaching them how to learn Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's quite shocking, actually. So I understand you approached the school and you asked the question. What was that question you asked?
What is the child going to learn by watching sex on the screen? Is he going to be able to learn about William Shakespeare?
I think it
No.
was.
So I've got a friend who used to be a head teacher, and she now goes into schools and coaches people about this. She's Caucasian and I'm Asian. She's not Muslim. I am Muslim. So I said, in a Muslim household, sex is a taboo subject. We don't talk about it. Even mother and daughter, we don't talk about it. We may imply things, we may try to teach a little bit, but we wouldn't necessarily approach the topic of sex. So to have an 11, 12-year-old being shown that, to them, I mean, the children might have enjoyed it, but the Muslim boys were all protesting. Why do we have to watch this? We shouldn't have to watch this. Then we've got Ramadan. So this was the week before Ramadan. It was 2-3 days before Ramadan was due to start. The most religious month of the Muslim calendar. We all try to purify our bodies, our language, our actions. We don't engage in sexual activity. We don't, sweat. We don't do any of this kind of stuff during Ramadan. And our children are being shown sex on TV. I don't know if it was a ploy to give the teacher some time off. Perhaps she just puts a video on, kids are watching it. Oh, look, I'm teaching you William Shakespeare. I have no idea. I expect teenage girls probably loved watching Leonardo DiCaprio devour his leading lady. These are two teenagers on screen. So we're almost like rationalizing, and we're almost like giving permission for teenagers to go off and engage in sex.
Yeah, I can see your point of view there. What do you think about children in the playground then talking about it? Because I mean, I can understand from a family's point of view that we are stopping the scenes at home on the television. However, there's things like YouTube they can Google. There's things like the playground talk. Like as a Muslim family or somebody who's having to mix with Caucasian people who are often experiencing this or watching this or allowing their children to, I don't know, watch something like this. How do you prevent your child from then getting exposure in the playground? Have you got an
So,
answer to that?
so I mentioned about my head teacher friend actually. So the discussion with her was that she would rather, and as a head teacher, as a teacher, and as a parent, she would rather her children got proper understanding and education on what sex is than go and speak to their friends and get the incorrect information. And we know at the age of puberty, a lot of children become very curious about this. They will go and research. So, there's access to porn these days, everything is accessible, and it is really difficult to prevent your children from accessing this kind of stuff. Everywhere you go out, there are people engaging in sexual activity and stuff on TV everywhere. Nudity and sex is available. So as a parent and having had to do this for the last 29 years, I believe that it's teaching our children what is acceptable and what's not. Children do need to know about this. I perfectly agree that they need sex education. They need to know the dynamics of it. They need to know the dangers behind it. They need to know about taking precaution and STDs and obviously abusive relationships and things. But it should be within a context. I don't think it is justifiable to show young children who probably don't understand that level of sexual activity and stuff a movie like that should have been vetted. If you want to teach them Romeo and Juliet, take out the sex scenes. They're not going to learn anything from those sex scenes. You want to teach them a language of William Shakespeare. You want to show them the scenes that they can then concentrate on, and you can discuss like we did in our school. We would discuss different chapters, different paragraphs. What does that mean? What are they trying to say? What does this language mean? Because it's a very complicated, complex language. Talk about that. Showing a scene in a swimming pool with Romeo and Juliet kissing passionately and things. I'm not going to learn any William Shakespeare from that. I might get excited and want to go and kiss Leonardo DiCaprio, but that's not going to help my ability to learn English literature.
No, and I can imagine that it would completely hijack the whole thing and just change the narrative of even associating Shakespeare now with
What's that
well,
romantic
swimming
love, isn't
pools. Swimming
it?
pools.
The thing is, I think the friend that I was discussing with, she told me that we've got it all wrong. Romeo and Juliet is not meant to be a passionate romantic story, which is what we all associate with. It's actually showing the madness of teenagers and the inability of them to understand about the feud between the two families. They kill each other. They die for love, basically. I mean, how pathetic. How unrealistic is that? How uncommon. That doesn't follow logic. So it's almost the reason William Shakespeare wrote that book was, and the story was to highlight how mad people can be in love, that you will kill yourself for love, that you will defy what your families are saying, what the logic is, what the safety aspect of it is and things. And that's what it's supposed to teach us, but we don't learn that. We romanticize it. So anybody who thinks of Romeo and Juliet is forbidden love, and it's amazing, and we all want that kind of love, but it's not realistic. And we are not doing our children favors by encouraging that kind of behavior, and by encouraging it's so romantic, she's up on the balcony and I'm going to serenade her from below. It's a teenage fantasy, but it's not realistic. I've had those fantasies as a teenager and as a young adult. It's not realistic in real life.
No, and I hear you. I hear completely. And we've got the whole Cinderella and Disney thing to also convolute things. You know what I wish? I wish they would do in education was to sit down and talk about the definition. Like, what is love? What is in love? What is infatuation? Maybe address it from that angle so that we don't confuse all this stuff.